I've spent the last month working on this game non-stop, and today I want to take you on a journey through every step that led to this final result. At first glance, this game might seem simple, cute, and charming, but don't let the cozy vibes fool you. This turned out to be one of the most brain-melting coding projects I've worked on, and in the next minutes, you will see exactly why I almost lost my sanity over it. Oh, and guess what? It's completely free to play on itch.io, so go ahead, download it, and experience it by yourself. Absolutely free of charge. But hey, if you want to support my ever-growing channel and maybe help me hit that sweet 2k subs, click on that subscribe button. I put a lot of love into designing the game's page, so it would mean the world to me if you check it out and give it a try. The download is tiny and you can experience the whole thing in just 15 minutes. Plus, it's available for both Windows and Mac. With that being said, let's rewind to January 27th of this year, the day I released my first game ever, Greg the Glider. After uploading that game, I told myself, alright, time to take a break from personal projects, but my brain had other plans. At the time, I was experimenting with Unreal Engine and C++, trying to piece things together. Now, for context, I had used Unreal Engine before, and I had coded in C++ before, but I had never combined them both together. Look, I'm not here to trash talk Unreal Engine, but coding in C++ in that engine feels like trying to eat a soup with a fork. Sure, I could have had just used a spoon, aka blueprints, like a normal person and saved myself the headache. But as someone who loves coding more than anything, I just couldn't deal with this soul-crushing compilation time. I stuck with it for around 2 weeks. I built a character controller and even got a basic pickup system working, but at the cost of my sanity and a lot of my precious time, I waved the white flag and put Unreal aside. For now, at least. Instead, I went back to my beloved Unity engine and decided to build my second game with it as well. The idea for this game actually hit me while I was still working on Greg the Glider. At the time, I had this cozy coffee shop I loved visiting, and then it clicked. Since I'm obsessed with cozy games, why not set my next game in a coffee shop? Originally, my plan was to make a cozy mystery game where you would have to chat with the locals to solve a crime. You can think of the Thursday Murder Club, but with animals and a coffee shop. But then something unexpected happened. I was playing Animal Crossing and I had a realization. Tom Nook yaps a lot, and I was like, sure, I can make a game full of yapping too, and that completely changed everything. I scrapped the mystery altogether. Now the concept was simple, a cozy game set in a coffee shop where everyone just yaps about their lives, and as the barista, your job isn't just to serve coffee, no, it's also to be the unpaid therapist for every single customer who walks in. And of course, the first thing I did for inspiration was open Pinterest. I made a gorgeous mood board full of aesthetic cafe references, because let's face it, you're not an indie game developer if you don't spend hours scrolling through images on Pinterest and daydreaming about how your imaginary game would look like. For this game, I took a lot of inspiration from Animal Crossing, so instead of borrowing everyday people, I wanted my locals to be a bunch of different animals. After gathering some references, I started modeling the main character in Blender. Now, I always keep my topology as simple as possible, partly because it makes rigging and UV unwrapping easier, but mostly because I am deeply afraid of sculpting and retopologizing. Is that how you say it?
Retopologizing.
Anyway, you get it, guys. Speaking of fears, let's talk about weight painting. I used to avoid it like my life depended on it. In fact, the entire reason my first game was about controlling a toy plane was because I wanted to dodge rigging and weight painting altogether. But for this project, I had no choice. I had to face my fears head on, and honestly, it wasn't nearly as traumatic as when I first touched Blender 3 years ago. Once the character was rigged, I made an idle animation, a walk cycle, and an upper body animation for holding the tray. To make my life easier, I only animated the upper body for holding the tray, so I could use animation masking in Unity and let the character hold the tray while walking or standing still. After the animations were done, I sent the model to Substance Painter where I hand painted the textures directly onto the mesh. After some fine tuning, I exported everything in Unity. Now it's Unity time. I wiped up a top-down character controller, threw in a fancy camera orbit and added the zoom feature with the mouse scroll, and just like that, my little animal barista was alive. Enough with that, let's talk about one of the most important mechanics in the game, picking up the tray and assigning drinks to it. This time, instead of diving into code, let's visualize how it works. When the player enters a designated area, they have the option to pick it up by pressing a specific key. Once picked up, the tray's position updates to match an empty game object attached to the barista's hand, making it look like they're holding it. Now that the player can pick up the tray, it's time to assign drinks to it. The logic behind this is simple. I place 3 empty game objects on the tray, which I will use their position to place the drinks and store store them in a list. For prototyping, I used cubes as placeholder drinks. Here is how it works. When the player picks up an order, up to 3 drinks will spawn in the 3 empty game objects on the tray. So we can safely say that the number of drinks, which can vary from 1 to 3, the positions of drinks and their types are all randomized. For prototyping purposes, I added these cubes, and for now, let's just pretend they are customers. Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, but we're going with it. So I slapped them all together in a list, and whenever the player picks up the tray, every drink on it will be assigned to a random cube customer, and once I serve them their drink, they will be removed from the list to avoid serving the same cube twice. Now, let's take a much needed break from all this technical mumbo jumbo and talk about how I made the NPCs. But before I dive into that, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Brilliant. Now, we all know that game development is all about learning new things and combining them all together. Brilliant is perfect for curious people like us who genuinely enjoy learning. Whether you are into math, science, or even the mysteries of quantum mechanics, Brilliant has courses for you. But even if learning isn't usually your thing, Brilliant makes it feel like a game for your brain. With interactive, gamified lessons, you'll be absorbing knowledge that you might not even realize that you're learning. To get started, just visit my link in the description, brilliant.org/IamWasim, or scan the QR code, which I put it now on the screen. The first 30 days are completely free, and you get full access to everything. By the way, just saying, using my link gets you 20% off an annual subscription. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to our coffee shop game. I will be honest, I'm incredibly lazy when it comes to 3D modeling, so for this project I decided to get creative and take a shortcut. Let's be real, as a solo indie developer, I'm not going to create a unique model for every NPC, weight paint every single one, and give them custom animations. No way, I'm not gonna spend my time doing that. Instead, I decided to go for efficiency. I modeled a single character mesh, rigged it, and slapped on just 2 animations, one for sitting around waiting for the drink and another for sipping coffee. But wait, there is more. The real magic happened in Substance Painter. I just gave every NPC a unique texture. In one day, I made all the NPCs. I gave each of them a name as well. I also added a second barista. I named him Corky, don't ask me why. So this Corky fella has one job, actually 2 jobs. One is to pick up the tray and second is to make coffee. Alright, let's talk about level design. When it comes to level design, I like to build everything in Blender first. Just throw all my assets together like a spaghetti bowl. Then I export them one by one, texture them, and place them in Unity. It's my personal method because I'm very visual and I like to see my whole level come together before I make everything pretty. And then here's the magic, Unity, where it all finally started to look like a coffee shop instead of a bunch of cube blocks pretending to be furniture. Alright, let's dive into the dialogue system. So like I mentioned earlier, the whole game is about chatting with the locals, and for every single customer I had to write their dialogue. Now full disclosure, when it comes to writing, I'm really bad at that, so I drafted some lines and sent them off to the script writing team. They fixed my grammar. But wait, it gets better. I added a cool typing effect to make it look like the characters are talking. Now we have dialogue. To make it even more exciting, I decided to add sound effects. So I grabbed my microphone, I recorded myself talking absolute gibberish and cut out the most random part I could possibly find. I set it to play on a loop in Unity, but every time it played, the pitch was randomized to make it sound less repetitive. Lastly, I threw in some sound effects like footsteps, a looping music track that I found on freesound.org, and birds singing. Of course, I totally didn't steal the bird sound from my previous game, and that, my friends, is how I made the dialogue happen in this game. You're welcome. Alright, I think I've covered most of the important stuff here, so to wrap this up, I will leave you with some gameplay footage to give you a taste of the game. If you want the full experience, head over to my itch.io page, download it and have some fun. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you in future projects.